Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. This is the Longhorn Confidential for August 13th. I'm Danny Davis, the Austin American-Statesman, as always, joined by Cedric Golden, Thomas Jones, and today we're going to talk about preseason polls. Lots of action the last couple of weeks, lots of news about those preseason rankings. On Monday, Texas was ranked fourth in the AP preseason poll, behind Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon. They were ranked fourth in the coaches poll, which came out last week. Same three teams ahead of them, and they're ranked second in the SEC preseason poll, which was compiled by the league's media, and they're just behind Georgia in that poll. So that's what we're working with. If we were to have a press conference with Steve Sarkisian right now, someone would ask him, "Hey, what do you think about being ranked fourth in the preseason poll?" We could ask the players the same thing, and they'd all say something along the lines of, "We don't care. We don't pay attention to polls. That's for y'all. We're only focused on the voices inside our locker room." I feel like I could be part of the Texas football team because I got these cliches down, but that's what they tell us. And so whether that's true or not, that's subject to debate. But I'm going to ask Thomas, you first. Are you with the players? Are you with Sark? Do you not care about preseason polls, or is there a value to preseason polls? Do they matter?
I always think back years ago when I covered high school sports, the former Westlake coach Ron Schrader, who said, and I was a great coach in the 90s. I said, "Coach, you're number one in the preseason. What do you think?" And he said, "Well, it doesn't mean anything, but if they have polls, you might as well be number one." So I take it as that. But unfortunately, in college football, I think it does mean something because it does kind of it kind of marks that starting point for how you're going to do during the season, from a kind of that committee perspective when they eventually measure out the 12 teams that are going to qualify for the playoff. I think college football is the only college sport that it matters. So yeah, it does matter. It does give you a little more leeway. If you make a mistake, you're not going to drop past 10, depending on the mistake.
Said, do you care about these preseason polls, or how do you feel about them?
I care. I really care because it gives us something to write about and it gives us something to talk about. And I know the fans are talking about the preseason polls. I've talked to a couple of them. They're excited that Texas is number 4 in the country. And like he said, like Thomas said, you know where you are. And if you're like 18, you know that there's not as much wiggle room to get to the top 12. But if you're 4, you could drop that game to Georgia and still be okay. You could still, you could, if it, number 18 team probably can't go 9-3 and make it to the playoff, but the number 14 might be able to go 9-3 and make it to the playoff because it's who you beat when you beat them. And no matter what people say, there's still a human element to this committee thing. And they're going to always give the SEC the benefit of the doubt, usually. And we're no longer talking about the top 4, where Georgia was left out last year and probably would have won the national championship had they not been left out. You saw what they did in the bowl season. So it does matter, perception-wise, playoff-wise. And I know Sark is preaching the same message to his kids in the locker room. Oh, the only thing that matters is inside these 4 walls. At the end of the day, there's going to be some human beings that decide whether you get in or not. And be very fortunate. Be very, very happy that you're number 4 and not number 24. So yes, it does matter.
Well, as you know, I am a contrarian, and
Then
so
bring it.
I'm definitely going to bring the opposite viewpoint. I understand what you both are saying, and this is a little ironic. I'm saying this on a podcast that's going to be about nothing about polls. But I don't hate's a strong word, but I strongly dislike the whole concept of preseason polls, in part because I think the method of compiling them is flawed. And I think they're inherently unserious. And I don't think that they should have this much power. I mean, we talked about the SEC preseason poll, and there was 2 jokers who voted Vanderbilt. Might as well be
Might as well, it's the
Um,
same thing.
I'm
Same
taking the
thing.
Vipers in that game.
They
they
both have
voted
the same. They both have the same chance of
LSU,
winning the SEC.
but
So
they
yes, Vandergriff is Vanderbilt. Yes.
They voted Vanderbilt to win the SEC conference, which is a joke. And those people should not have ballots, but their ballot counts has exact same value as my vote or Thomas's vote or Cedric's vote. As much as we respect the AP voters, one of which is our good friend Kirk Bowles of the Houston Chronicle. Let's be serious. There is no way these voters have seen all 25 of these teams. There's no way that's outside the team they cover. That's probably all they've seen. And so they are kind of guesstimating off what other people have said. And that's how they are making these rankings. And I don't think that's a fair or accurate way of compiling these polls. You talk about the coaches poll. I don't believe Steve has a ballot, but if Steve had a ballot, there's not a single one of us who believes Steve Sarkisian's filling out that preseason ballot. That's going to, his
JB.
SLP or some assistant in his office. These coaches aren't filling out these ballots either. So I just think these are generally unserious and something for us to talk about. I hope that it doesn't play that much of a factor. My argument for the whole 9-3 thing is don't go 9-3, go 10-2. If you're one of these teams, don't leave it to chance, regardless of whether you're ranked 4th or 20th in the preseason poll. Get it done in the field. And so I just don't think preseason polls are serious. They give us something to talk about and all that stuff, but until there's a better way of compiling them and people take them more serious, like I'm an AP voter for women's basketball. I don't have one for the football poll. I can guarantee you, when the 30 of us fill in our ballots for the preseason rank, we're all going to look at Charlie Cream's way too early 25 poll, and everyone's going to make a couple of edits here and there, and that's how we're going to come up with a preseason poll. It's not because we don't take this job serious. It's because we've seen the 1 or 2 teams that we cover, and we kind of have to make guesstimates, and that's going to be the basis for, we're not going to see games, we're not going to see rotations, we're not going to see schemes and all that stuff. And I just think that's flawed. I mean, talk to me a little bit down the road once we've actually been able to see some teams play and actually been able to evaluate and judge these teams. But as far as the preseason, I think it's flawed all around, whether you're talking about conference, media polls, or coaches polls. But
it's going to always be a little flawed because human beings are involved, and human beings are imperfect beings. So it's going to always be flawed, but it is a really good jump off point for August, and it kind of gets people excited about what's coming up, man, because ultimately the games will be decided on the field, but this is part of the ever growing hype machine that is college football.
One of these days we'll have a 32-team playoff, and we won't have to worry about polls at all.
Yeah, the number 33 team will be complaining even then.
We'll get done with football in March. But Texas fans surely were not complaining about their placement, number 4 in the AP poll, number 4 in the coaches poll. Can Texas live up to those expectations, or are they destined for a 2010-like disappointment where they were number 5 in the preseason poll, coming off that runner-up finish in 2009, and everything went to hell that year under Mac and with Garrett Gilbert at quarterback? Which one are we expecting to see from the Longhorns this year? Seth, we'll start with you.
That 5-7 nightmare is not going to happen this season. It's not. Mac has been very candid about this over the years, and he told me and told many other people, I didn't get over that loss. It took me 2 years to get over that loss. I'm like, so he slept walk through 2010, through that 5-7 nightmare. That was 2010, and was visibly not over losing to Alabama in 2009 when Cole got hurt. So I don't think that this current team's makeup is similar to that one, and especially with the fact that they've got one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the country returning under center, and a really, really good offensive line and some talented receivers. A defense that has question marks, but one that has some talent as well. So I feel like it's way closer to 10-2, 11-1 than it could ever be to 5-7. I think that Texas will contend for the SEC championship. I don't know if they make the game, but that Oklahoma-Georgia double in the middle of the schedule will tell us a lot about this team, especially if they leave Detroit with a win. So I think that what I see is an experienced locker room of guys that have been through it. They believe now. They have a coach who has a culture that he's built, and they've got the right pieces in place at many of the key positions. And so I think no team has zero weaknesses. Texas has weaknesses, but I think they have more strengths. And I do believe that they're gonna win at least 10 games this season.
PJ, in December, January, do you expect us to be talking about a top 5 team again, or a team that disappointed and did not live up to the
Bring
expectations?
it, TJ. Bring it.
Oh, no,
Bring it.
I think Ced's right. I think they're in position to be a top 5 team. Just look, they have elite play in the trenches on both. The offensive line, I think, is unquestionably one of the best in the country, and I think the defensive line can be pretty good. And you have a veteran quarterback, but that play in the trenches, when you have next level guys playing on both sides on the line, it's what characterized those Bama teams in the 2000s. It's what characterized those Clemson teams 10 years ago. It's what characterizes Georgia right now. It keeps you in contention. It erases a lot of mistakes and hides a lot of flaws. That line play will keep UT in contention for a playoff spot for sure, and probably a top 5 spot.
But is Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, are those elite players?
I think they'll be very effective, and I think the edge play will be better for UT this year with Trey Moore.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think it's, we have a lot of questions we have to answer about this team that y'all just brought up. This is not going to be a 2010. Just look at the quarterback situation. I think Texas has to be as good as we thought Garrett was going to be. We know what Quinn is, and having a third-year starting quarterback says a lot. Are they going to be the number 4 team in the country at the end of the season? That means the semifinals, and there's no way to guarantee that, especially with how weird playoffs are. And Texas can easily lose 2-3 games during the regular season. There's no guarantee they're going to, sleepwalk to a 10-2 record. Their schedule isn't the toughest in the world, but they still do have to go to Michigan. They still have to, play Georgia, the number 1 team at home. You have to go play Oklahoma, which is ranked in Dallas. They had to go to College Station, which I don't care if the Aggies are 0-11, which they will not be. That's going to be an insane and tough game. Going to Arkansas is not going to be easy, regardless of how Arkansas is, or what time that game's going to be at. So I think it's, I would be a little hard pressed to guarantee Texas is going to be, whatever the numbers are, 12-2 or something, that get you to the semifinals and guarantee you a top 4 spot. But they're a playoff team. It's not going to be 2010. Whether or not top 10 is going to be a disappointment for Texas fans, all the hype going into the season, that's to be debated later. But I don't think
just get in the tournament, man. Just get in.
Get in the playoffs, contend for an SEC championship, and let whatever happens in December happen in December. As I mentioned, Kirk was an AP voter for us, but since he took his ballot over the Houston Chronicle, the Statesman does not currently have a AP ballot for football, which is fine by me. But if we did have an AP ballot, who would be your top 5 teams in it? Like we said, we mentioned the 4 at the beginning, and Alabama is number 5 in the preseason poll. Does your fake ballot look similar? Thomas, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it does. I think Georgia is the best team in the country. I think they're the best defense and arguably the best quarterback. It's hard to argue against Ohio State and Oregon. Those teams are loaded. They have a lot of guys back. I think Texas is deserving of a top 5. I really like Notre Dame this year. And, traditionally their offense is just, man, like stuck in the 20th century,
Like last year.
I know. But bear with me. Here's why I like them. First of all, I love Marcus Freeman, their head coach, and their defense is going to be great again. But you got new offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrook, who guided LSU's offense last year, and you saw what Jaden Daniels did winning the Heisman. And you got a new quarterback in Riley Leonard, transferred in from Duke, dynamic dual threat. He missed last year with an injury. He was outstanding in 2022. So with that new dual threat at quarterback, new offensive coordinator, I think the Irish are finally in the 21st century offensively. And I think they're going to make some noise this year. Top 5 team.
You know what I like? I like the fact that the CFP didn't make any special considerations for Notre Dame as far as helping them get in. They got to get in on merit. They're not getting that, they're Notre Dame and they're independent and blah, blah, blah. No, they got to finish top 12.
Yeah, 9-3 for Notre Dame will get them in.
9-3 will get them in. I like the preseason AP poll. I like Ohio State. Georgia to me is unquestionably number one, and I can't wait for that game in Austin. I think that might be a replay of the LSU Texas game where LSU had an NFL team and Sam Ehlinger played great that night. I'd go Georgia, Ohio State. Put Texas ahead of Oregon. I think I would put Texas ahead of Oregon, and then Oregon, and then Bama. I would put Texas 3 because I just quarterback play in college football is so important, and Texas has a guy, and Carson Beck is a guy. They have those teams that make it are usually have a great quarterback. I was not a JJ McCarthy fan. I wasn't. And that offense was catered at Michigan to the run game. But they were kind of the exception that they won with a quarterback that I wasn't crazy about. But we knew that Quinn Ewers was a big game quarterback. We knew what Michael Penix could do. And so I'm giving Texas the edge at number 3 because of quarterback play. And they got to keep Quinn healthy. And if ever there was a year where you can keep the quarterback clean, it should be behind this offensive line. Quinn's got to be smarter. That Houston injury was on him. Learn to slide and learn to slide early. Get your A out of bounds. Don't take unnecessary hits. Because this year, above all else, even though we've got a would-be rock star waiting in the wings, it says Texas fans, you still want Quinn Ewers, the more experienced quarterback, riding and driving this ship into the SEC.
I go with Georgia number 1 because no one's going to fault you for picking Georgia. Ohio State's my 2. Texas is my 3. I tend to always give the defending champ a measure of the benefit of the doubt, regardless what their roster looks like. So Michigan's my 4. And 5's Utah. Utah, they're a top 10 team, I think, in the AP poll, the Big 12 favorites. And if you look at their schedule, there's a very good chance this Utah team jaunts to an undefeated record. I think they played 2 ranked teams the entire season. The Big 12 is not strong this year. We all want to talk about Dion in Colorado and some of those other teams, but I think the Big 12 is really weak. And if this Utah team is indeed a top 10 team, they could very well go undefeated or have one loss, and that will definitely get them in that top 5 mix. I did not pick Oregon because I grew up an Oregon fan. Oregon was my dream school growing up. When I was in college, I was known as the person always walking around campus with an Oregon sweatshirt, and I've seen this team disappoint too many times in my life, and I am not going to fall for this trick. I'm not going to rank them as a top 3 team, just have them fall flat on their face during what's going to be an interesting season, see how they transition into the Big Ten with all this travel and getting used to a different conference. Texas could have been playing them in the Sugar Bowl last year. They not fallen flat on their face in the Big 12 or Pac-12 championship game last year. So even without, you can say what you want about Dylan Gabriel, I don't think he's an upgrade over Bo Nix. So I would love it. I would love it for Oregon. I would love it for Oregon to prove me. If Dylan Gabriel is better than Bo Nix, he'd be in the league right now. I'm sorry, like he would be. He would
Bo
be.
Nix waited till he was like 28 or whatever he is now to turn pro.
Little quarterbacks usually don't leave early, except for Kyler.
Well, Dylan's not leaving early. He's like his 46th year of college. He would be in the league.
He'd have to take a pay cut.
No.
Let me ask you this, Daniel. You gave the defending national champions the benefit of the doubt and put them in your top 5.
Name their quarterback.
What's going to happen at the Big House in week 2 when me and you are rolling to the Motor City to find out what's going on in week 2? Are you still going to give them the benefit of the doubt, or are you going to get your horns up and jump aboard the Sark train?
Pretty sure I have Texas ranked 3rd, so that kind of gives you my answer.
Hey, rankings are rankings, but this game ain't at DKR. It's at the Big House, and I'm not talking about prison.
I don't think I'm going to fret too much about that, but I also don't think. I mean, I don't know what the line is for that game, but that should be competitive because
that's a field goal game. That'll be 3 or 3.5.
I think I'll end up picking Texas in that game, but when my AP women's basketball poll comes out, South Carolina is going to be one. And the case for South Carolina is a lot easier than the case for.
Not to go. Did Don Staley leave? No.
But I held on for LSU forever this past season, even though LSU lost their opener. And struggle throughout the season or being like ranked in the 20s by some AP members. But I just usually just tend to respect the champs and think that they're going to figure it out and that championship culture means something. But that's also just my preference. But I also feel a lot more confident in Michigan than I do with Oregon. So
It's Texas by 3.5, by the way.
So
I know my stuff.
But yeah, that's gonna do it for us. We enjoyed getting on here and talking about polls, whether I think they're stupid or y'all think they're great at home. They give us something to talk about. That's what we talked about today. But we appreciate you tuning in, listening to us wherever you get your podcast or watching on YouTube or statesman.com, where you'll also find lots of content. It's the busy time of the season. We're writing a lot. Caleb Young went out to the new Longhorn Network studios today and wrote about that. So lots of stuff on statesman.com. Also, check out our high school guys. They are hitting up all these in the Syntax area. Rick Cantu, Colby Gordon, they are putting in the work too. So check out statesman.com.
Statesman.com.
Lots of
One thing, Daniel, before we go, On Second Thought was on hiatus. We'll be back soon. We're rebranding. The old man doesn't work here anymore, so we've got to reshuffle the cards. But the On Second Thought podcast is back in the works, and we'll have episodes out before the football season. You heard it here first.
So much stuff, and we appreciate you taking it all in with us. But we'll see y'all down the road, and thanks for joining us. Deuces.